Perhaps we could winnow the list down, and then the remainder could be dealt with according to the recommended action. So
I think you're one of our premier direction creators, Councilmember McCowan.
well, and it might be cleaner to make separate. I don't know that we need to make motions if it's clear what the consensus is, but we may not have consensus. So would there be any objection to having an ad hoc committee of Councilmember Thomas and Councilmember Roden to meet with interested citizens to consider the tree issue?
I think that's fine. Does this, once it's mentioned as an ad hoc two-person, does it need to be voted on?
An ad hoc committee?
Well, I mean, if it's being formed by the City Council, in order for it to be formed by the City Council, there'd have to be some formal action of the City Council. If you just want to suggest that two council members meet together,
I move that we so suggest.
Well, with this ASR, can we?
If I think a motion in terms of creating an ad hoc group to work on the tree issue would be
the
very
general
valuable.
topic is discussion of possible prioritization. The fact that the recommended action is more limited doesn't restrict what you do.
Councilmember
Mr. Mayor,
Redden.
my suggestion wasn't to form an ad hoc committee to deal with trees. It was only to say that we don't want to include, amongst a list of potential ordinances, we aren't looking right now at a tree ordinance, but we would like to hear from a committee what they have to say about trees. So it wasn't a committee of council members to work with the tree committee, but rather that we just want to hear back from a tree committee on the issues that they had specified. So they would be eliminated from the list of potential ordinances. That's what I was suggesting. Another two that would be set aside would be the one dealing with the sewer billing and the other one with rent stabilization. So they go out of the list. The remainder are ones that potentially an ad hoc committee could talk about, maybe eliminate a few from the list, as Ms. Pruden and others suggested, and just sort of synthesize all that was brought forward to us today. And that's what the ad hoc committee would do, report back, and then that would be, what we would be left with would be the potential ordinances to be dealt with and prioritized at the budget hearings. That was my suggestion. And that could be direction to staff if everybody agrees. I don't know that we need a motion.
I'm not sure if I'm clear on what we have already, a community group has already come forward with their rather specific recommendations regarding trees. I don't know what else we would ask such a community group to do at this point.
Well, I thought Bruni Kobe was saying they don't necessarily, they aren't insisting on an ordinance right now, that they would be happy to talk about ways to enforce current code and talk about community education around tree maintenance and those issues. I think those are vital, and it's a way that volunteers in the community can provide a service that is of interest to everybody and isn't costing the city money. So that's what they could provide to us. I mean, if there's objection from the people interested in the tree committee, then I would like to hear from them. But that's what I heard.
Okay. Further council discussion or direction at this time? Councilmember McCowan.
Well, I'm worried that we might be a little too vague on some of these items. So I'm going to try a motion regarding a couple of items and hope that that passes, and then we can go to the next step maybe. So I would move that we direct the city attorney to investigate possible rent stabilization ordinances that would be self-enforcing and would not involve city administration of the process, and also to draft a utility billing ordinance that would specify that utility billing charges that the city charges to mobile home parks and apartment houses with more than 4 units, that would specify that those charges would be passed through to the residents at the same rate that the city passes them through to the owners.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further council discussion? If not, roll call discussion. Councilmember Crane.
And to come back in February.
Right. What are your thoughts about the point raised by one of the speakers tonight about some cost for maintenance of infrastructure? Would that be dealt with in the other components of their rent? And
Well,
not as part of the utility pass-through?
They have the right by law to recover their capital improvement charges.
So that would appear in the rent, not through the utility charge, through utility pass-through.
Well, actually, my research indicates that they're providing sewer services based on the water charge, the water meter charge so they have a water meter, and Public Utilities Commission actually imposes some regulations on mobile home park owners that use sub-meters for water service. And they have, under the PUC rules, they can either include all of the operation and maintenance costs of their on-site system in the rent, or they can separately charge their tenants for those costs. If they separately charge the tenants for those costs, then the PUC has jurisdiction to review those costs to make sure that they're legitimate and that they're reasonable. So my thought was that at least where there's sub-meters involved, the city ordinance would not have to address that's already regulated by state law. They're already entitled to pass those costs through to their tenants, either through a separate charge, which is subject to review by the PUC, or as part of the rent. And then if there's no sub-meters involved, the city ordinance might have to deal with prorating, somehow recognizing that they have a right to charge their tenants for operation and maintenance costs.
Thank you.
And in the case of sub-meters, they also have the right to recover to add on a reasonable service charge, I believe, according to law.
Right.
Further council discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
McCowan.
Yes.
Roden.
Yes.
Mayor Baldwin.
Yes. Further direction at this point?
Well, I think there is, I mean, there are a lot of other potential ordinances that we're ignoring. So I think we want to maybe recommend or move the recommended action for the remaining,
Well, I'd appreciate a little more discussion before we get to that.
Well,
So I'm not sure we've settled the tree issue yet. You know, and then also I did want to advocate for the guardian language, which...
Well, that was the point. 90% of the people who came tonight came to talk about trees and the guardianship issue. So I hope we would respond in some form or fashion to those interests. I certainly would like to see an agendized item on both those issues in the spring. One that would help, maybe the community committees could help us compile all of our tree guidelines, statements, regulations, and help us have a discussion about the best way to enforce those. And Friends of Gibson Creek, Relief could help us get ready for a meeting in March that would at the very least encourage us to pay attention and to know where we find those, so then the next time we have a significant issue, we are ready to respond. But Councilmember McCowan, what do you suggest at this point?
Well, with regard to the guardian language, I think the proposed changes are pretty straightforward.